morning, class. Welcome to Homeroom with Unc and Market Monk.
Good morning, P. How was your week?
Oh, pretty busy. Just kind of that 1 week a year where I'm purely 9 to 5. I grade AP exams for those who don't know, and you're just in a warehouse for 9 hours, just basically grading the same essay question the entire time, and so gets a little monotonous, tedious. They pay all right, and it's kind of a sort of like a service to have college professors there, or whatever. I've been doing it like 20 years now, so well, not that long, 15 years. But anyway, so I didn't have a lot of time for trading, and it kind of worked out because there was just a lot of park and wait stuff that it did well that I already had, and then a couple earnings trades, a couple trades that opened. But yeah, I tried to just maintain a presence here as much as I could and just kind of get through that. But back home now, so all good.
Yeah, no, a great week for. Um, we always say use the work, but our work isn't also, I guess, live. I don't know how else to say. We don't live trade around here. We don't because we don't have to.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, a lot of like
right.
the silver thesis coming through was good. I'm still on JV semis from the share side, and a lot of those did well last week. Um, Space plays, Red Robin. I mean, it was definitely not by choice, but a more take profit week than actually entering new stuff or getting
Yeah,
different positions because we were already there. When we get into spy, if you just kind of look where we've been or what we've been doing, that roadmap just really helps me. And um, I've been kind of knocking on the table here the last few weeks. Or what's the next step? And for me, it was either grinder or pop and fade, and or excuse me, the grinder or the firework market. And it feels like we've kind of already gotten into a little bit of that firework market.
yeah, no, for sure. And there's just on the other side of it too. I think the opportunities taking shape are the companies that get punished on ER for whatever reason, usually guidance, but that you'll see a lot of mid candle recoveries in otherwise, pretty pretty decent sectors. Lulu's a good example. I had traded the last recovery on Lulu very well, and I was out of it, and for it to come back down, kind of been here before. Just you just give it time, let it set back up. But there's just been so many like that, and tech too. Docu, Adobe did it. Workdays in that mode right now. But you just let them get punished, and then the market gets kind of forgiving, and they just sort of recover with everything else. And even if they don't, I mean, there's if I were to add something like Workday, I do have a pivot well below this. So if we want to go that direction, then you're just kind of scaling in. But I guess the key is not to like we talk about plant your flag. That's your term. But just give it some patience. But there are some good entries, particularly in sectors that have been pretty strong, with an outlier that got pummeled on earnings. There's going to be a lot of those setups coming up too, I think.
Yeah, the for the example for me, it's Docu, but it was just, I mean, you kind of covered it because it's close to a pivot for me. Um, and that's I think
Yeah,
is important when you do get pullback. If you ever have established levels or levels you've traded or levels that you've went through checks before, you're going to be able to do that again. And that's why I stress on my side knowing like where volume is or at least how much volume is happening or money flow. Positive buys, positive sales, just to kind of like have an idea of, you know, now that we're at this level, what do I look for? And maybe you're just a pure options play, like when you look at the flow around those price points and they react a little differently, or you see more activity or certain kind of activity. But that's, I mean, it's just a guiding light. I couldn't imagine just having a chart that's up you know, no matter the time frame, the if it's up, 300% on a 4 year, if it's up 50% on a 6 month chart, like trying to find a level, or when it falls 20 or 30%, having a spot. I like if you're just kind of pissing in the wind, hoping that, hey, this is the level. I've just never gotten that, as opposed to being ready for it to hit the level and then react in a certain way, and not being deterred if it doesn't hit your level because you have multiple plays. And that's just kind of how I looked at what you said, for sure. Like, you just kind of have to have that nuance, because these are going to set back up again, and that's the main point of that. They will set back up again, but I mean, even if they do, what are you going to do? And we can use SPY as an example in April. I mean, I didn't scream it, but I sure said it out loud that, man, the bottom's in. We get a couple candles, you get an established base, the bottom's in. Well, what did you do then? And you're reaping the rewards for it now. And, well, shit, Unc, I sat on my hands because I didn't believe in the system. I don't trust it yet. I gotta wait. I like to chase a little bit because I need that confirmation. Well, that's gonna have to change. But you haven't missed the boat at all. And I've said, I mean, where we're gonna go with this now, at least for me, is what I've said for months. I need like August, September. Like, you get me to October, November, I
Yeah.
leave me alone. Like, it's not for me. Well, right now, them Januaries, if we're gonna continue this trend and just pick up beat up shit, let me know where the
Hmm.
Decembers and Januaries are, please, please, because now that's relevant. Now
Yeah.
we're
Right.
at it. We're at a different stage, and you have to at some point in time, as a trader, just get on that train and be ready for the next stop, or the next cycle, or the next thesis, instead of just watching them go by.
Yeah. Absolutely. And on the January options, we're still at a point where there's something in the summer or fall that's usually going to be paired with that. The ones that aren't, the kind of January set and forget, the whales have not yet set up whatever the other thing is they're going to do. I mean, that's why the boxing glove is so important, and I think it's been so good for us. Is that it's a bigger plan. Like, I can see something out in January and say, yeah, I think they're probably going to take this there, but they might be kind of hedged against one more big pullback, or whatever. But they'll just stay in that January stuff through all of that. But as a trader, I don't really want to go on that whole journey with them.
No.
I'd rather see some clarity, right? And so that's what I'm always that's what I'm always after. I post the January stuff because it's there, and I want to get a record of it, and I want to, you know, have it out there. But I know that a lot of that stuff's not going to make it through our whole process.
Oh, it's
However,
it's
I
looking
still
different.
put
It's looking different in October.
yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I'll mention, I had a pretty good question this week about is it better to go at the money or close to the money with less time, like a month to 3 months, or to go way out of the money with a lot of time? And like, for example, it's like hymns 105C or something like
Buy shares.
that.
Shut up.
Yeah, right. And so I mean, those way out of the money contracts can work. Goose and I laugh about and mess with, like GME, has these ridiculous out of the money contracts that people are just trading the IV. So that's a different kind of trade. It's not really something that you want to mess with, because those work as long as the whales are sort of engaged with it. There's demand for that contract, and people are in it. You don't know when that demand's going to leave, and I can't give you a heads up early about when that happens. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to see that until after they're gone.
Yes.
Whereas what I do is the opposite, where I look for the setups where they can't really hide their plan. I see what they're doing. I see what they're kind of, for lack of a better term, sort of trapped in. They're engaged in, we're going to take this stock here, and if there's a disruption to it, we have the ability to make this stock recover and do what we want it to do. That's why share construction and float size are so important, and
Hmm.
it's why stuff like MDB works so well, because like they can stick to the plan. Something like hymns, I like hymns a lot. We've traded it well. I still like it, but the shares are so much better because of the way that stock is built and how much like retail knows about hymns. They're all over it. So you get a lot of shakeouts, right? And you can absorb a shakeout a lot better if you're actually just in shares. So I think if you're going to mess with options, you go in the money or at the money, and if it's too expensive for you, well then you just don't do it, and you just buy some shares instead. Some of these setups, if you want to swing trade John Deere options, it's about $3,000 to do it well. I've done that here and there. That's kind of at the higher end of what I like to be in for something in options, and I don't really do that for a lot of them, especially these days. But that's what you're working with. You can't cheap out and swing John Deere options for $200 6 months out. You just can't do it. That'd be like 700C, and yeah, it could. I guess it could do that, but ridiculous. Don't mess with that. You're just you're adding a lot of risk, and you're venturing into the Greeks that you don't know much about, and that I even reach my limit on. It's so you're when you're out of the money, you're playing with fire. So that's all I'll say about that. Just kind of know that if you're going to try that, and it's a risk you don't need to take.
Yeah, the first let's start with the questions have been more detailed, directed, more open. I guess would be a good way to say it. So I definitely want to point that out and say thank you to those people that are trusting us with the insight. I guess so. I don't want to get not upset or loud, but I don't want to go too unk on the questions that we're getting because they're great. They're really detailed, and so I appreciate. Shout out to those novice and those guys this week. Um, yeah, trade shares. I mean, it's just easier to dictate your risk. Um, it's really easy, and I mean the time that most people have aren't is just not built for options. Um, I like the complementing share trades with or complementing option trades with the shares. Because I think you need to kind of circle back to what you said. You need to learn the things like the float size. I mean, there's some stocks are, I mean, they're not going to move 100%, and a 30% move in that stock is going to be great. I mean, for me, I'm a 30% shares trade is great. So it's going to be great from both sides because the options are going to work well too. But learning that share structure, how the chart moves and stuff is most important. That takes time. Time kind of kills you on the option side, and you're going to need that work to effectively do it. I did my best job to talk Carlos. I don't know if he's here today, but just completely off of options. And I ain't gonna lie, I kind of like how he does options currently with his hedges. If he's buying some shares, he buys some puts, and I mean that's a good way to kind of dabble your feet. Besides buying the other thing he did, buying SPY ODTs. Like that's just not where you want to start. And then transferring what you learned in those situations is just going to be better. If you start trading SPY ODTs and try to take that to another stock, it's just not going to translate for you. But if you learn share structure, price action, so to speak, you're going to be way better off. And um, man, couple that with just establishing some pivots and ranges, you could actually survive in this game. So um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too long
Well,
winded in it, but I definitely
I think
you can't just jump in and get used to the water and options.
yeah. Well, I think too that one reason it is a good question is because I post some way out of the money contracts
Sure,
in collabs, right?
sure.
And I'll say this is plausible, but that still doesn't mean I want to buy that. Because of the main thing, that phrase I use, kick the can down the road. Whales do that a lot, right? So the way out of the money stuff on Groupon. that's now in the money. There were a couple different attempts at that, and so like you don't want to be in that and have time working against you. And so if you do want options, you go in the money. You get like an in the money leap on Groupon, and it was like no stress for this whole move. Um, and but then there's stocks I can't really do that with. If I were to do an in the money leap on Casey when it did this, or Waste Management, or some of those other ones that Spotify, Duolingo, that had these massive moves. There's no way I could have stayed in it this long, because
Sure.
but with shares I can, because like I can do a lot more with $3,000 in Casey shares than I could one contract that's $3,000 or two contracts that are $1,500. Where's your scale in and scale out? You can't do it. You can't do it. So you end up rolling, and a lot of times psychologically you roll after a big spike, which means it's going to pull back, and you're stuck there mid candle, and then it retraces and goes back up. But it's hard to manage that just psychologically. That you have something you bought for $800 goes to $3,000, and it's going to dip back to $2,300, and then it's going to go to $5,000. I learned a long time ago I can't do that. I cannot sit there and have something that's worth $3,000. No, it's probably going to lose $500 to $700 of value on the hope that
If you're right.
it's going to then.
If you're right.
If you're right, and then it's gonna gain double from there. I've been right tons of times on setups like that, but I still don't want to do that. I don't want to sit there and watch $500-$700 of profit evaporate in something where time's going to work against me, even if it's a year from now. Okay, 2 months from now. Well, it's 10 months from now. So I just don't want to do that. I don't want to trade like that. And so my use the work is the option share combo. Options go first, hang around in the shares, and you get some pretty big things. I don't know, like life changing. Yes, I mean that can happen. That's happened to me twice now. So that can happen, and it's always been shares. I told you earlier this week. I was like, CoreWeave hit my top 5 this year, and I didn't buy one option on that thing.
Yeah.
And because the IV's ridiculous, and but it's in a gamma squeeze, and it's a lot more fun to be in a gamma squeeze in shares than options. I can speak from experience on that.
Yeah, I think a good example, just to kind of what you're saying, and it fits, the puzzle piece fits perfect, is Hims currently. And if we were down there at the 25-30 range and you bought shares, or if you bought options instead of shares, like you're probably getting racked around like you're talking about currently. Even if you made money on that trade, like I don't know if the 105 gets any value, even if on a move from 30 to 60, 70 range or wherever we're at. In shares, you are sleeping comfortably knowing your entry ain't never coming back. I mean, it's just a different.
But,
when you do win, it's
what
a
if they
different
drop
beast. Go ahead.
And they drop an offering and it drops 8% overnight.
You don't care.
In shares, who gives a shit?
You don't care.
Right.
Yeah, why would you fucking care about that?
Yeah.
Especially when you get the. I mean, it's not like it's different. If that 30 to 50 or 30 to 55 move, which say 70-80%, whatever the math would be on that. If that happened over like 5 months, okay, you might think about it a little bit. But when that happens in 3 weeks, that given 8% back, you just kind of expect it. And I think that's in the options. I mean, the question I would have for you, just to get across the guy that's thinking about doing it, does that 105 really even move on that first move? Because I just assume you probably do just as good or better in the shares. And if it does, like how fast does that start bleeding when the momentum stops? Because I mean that's what people are running into.
The move, given the time on it, the move is comparable to the share move in terms of percentage. So it's not really worth it in that sense. I mean, the percentage might be higher, but what I mean is like so you make $300 on it, right? It's a lot easier to make the $300 in shares,
Sure.
and it's a lot safer. Um, and again, that 7% drop or 8% drop is gonna take a bigger bite out of the options than it does the shares, because that option's dropping more than 8%. And the one thing I'll say, like one of the reasons like a lot of these zero DTE guys lose out, it's a hell of a lot easier to lose money than make money on those things, and so they end up losing a lot more. And even if you're doing it at 30 $40 a pop, you buy 5 of them, you're buying 5 of something that can go to zero. And you can say, well, you can have a stop. They don't do that though. They average them down. They hope they'll try to flip to the other side and buy puts as it's going down, and then they're late there too, and then both sides lose. And so it's just it's a nightmare. The more you actually learn about options, the more you respect them. And when I said, like, early in the week, I was like, we're spies near all-time high, and all these accounts are deactivating and going on vacation, and I called it the power of options. People normally use that phrase to talk about how much money you can make.
Mm-hmm.
My point is the market can do extremely well, and it can blow up accounts, and that's exactly what's happening to people.
Yeah, consolidation kills those guys because they need confirmation. 100%.
Yeah.
They're not even worth our
Yeah.
time right now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, just kind of a little side dish for what we're talking about, and that's why I stress, especially if you're a smaller account, because I mean those are the people that kind of gravitate towards options, or the ones that are thinking, I can put whatever the amount is in your head, and I can get to whatever other amount is in your head, and then I can start trading. Again, I may be biased because it's how I came up, but you are better off if you don't have the hugest account, or you don't feel like you have a lot to trade with. Just taking your 10% over and over again. And yeah, sometimes it's a little more than 10%. But that, just having that mindset is how you build. And then you as those blocks stack up, you figure out, I need to be more efficient. And time is everything. So when you hit goals or hit plans, just move on to the next one. And I mean, that's really how you build an account. Versus trying to hold and hope something. Like, I put 300 in and now I'm at 3,800, and riding that back to 2,500, and then you were right, so it goes to $5,000. Like, that's not even the amount of time you're wasting over there, or the risk you're taking. It's just the percentage of actually building a career is way lower. Um, you kind of use a baseball analogy. I mean, you can be a home run hitter and be famous, but those guys that got on base their whole career, I mean, they're the ones that had the longevity, instead of just a good season or two. You'd rather be Tony Gwynn and Cal Ripken than Barry Bonds or Mark McGwire.
Sure. And yeah, Barry Bonds, he kind of was that first type, and then
Yeah,
he got frustrated at the steroid guys and decided to join them. But
exactly.
yeah, the if you can get to a point with like a trading account where you don't have to replenish it. That's step one. Whatever your method is, when you can have a trading account that sustains itself and peels off to whatever your goals are. If you want to, fund a vacation off your trading account, or buy your kid a car, or whatever, like you can do those things and have the account still be there. Investment's different. Like, you take a percentage of whatever you're making, and you have your long-term investments, and you're constantly adding to that. I get that, but trading. I mean, especially for me, trading was always intended to replace having to do things like teach extra classes, or grade essays online, or all that kind of shit. Like, I want to replace all that, and so it had to get to a point where it was sustainable. And for most people who do this, it's not. They refill their account every month, and some of them, do it responsibly. People also, you know, go to the casino on the every weekend, and still, they're not like, their life's not in the gutter. They're not destroying their life by doing it, but they usually lose, and they have fun with it, and that's fine. If you want to treat trading like that, you certainly can. You want to treat crypto like that, or sports betting, or whatever, you can. But if you want to actually sustain this, you got to set up rules and approaches that are going to ensure that you never really get max profit, and that you're not a home run hitter on everything. Because those same rules that keep you from getting those huge gains, those multi-baggers every time, are the rules that keep you from losing big. So, you're better off setting yourself up in that way, and you'll last longer.
Yeah,
getting the base hits.
Just like in baseball, man, there is no reason to leg out a triple if there ain't no outs. Just stand on second base.
Yeah.
Just stand on second base, and that mentality is.
Don't be the first or third out on third base.
Exactly. What else did I have? I had a note. I'm just gonna read it, see if it sparks a conversation. But man, I've been bullish lately. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've been like, no, we're going somewhere. What do you got at 620p over? Just because of our system and our checks point to that. And I've always said my best setup for me personally is when I'm kind of pounding the table on something, or I see consolidation on a level and it's real quiet on your end, and then 2 weeks later you're mentioning it without me saying anything. That's always been my best setup, and those flowers are currently growing. So I want to put that out there, man. I've only been bullish because of our checks and our systems. We've seen this movie before. We know the actors. Just talk a little shit. When are you catching up, P? When's your side catching up?
Well, I think it's the way that so the June 20th 600C is going to get rolled to something, right? And I would assume it's going to be July 620. It's out there. July 620 is in like the top 20 of OI. I'd expect it to break into the top 10 pretty soon. So that's kind of what they're working with. They've also got this 62580C that I think they're probably going to do something with. The sell to close activity there is a roll. It's not, they're not just selling to open, trying to bag people. I think it's $2,100. They bought it for between $300 and $500, I think. So all that's kind of at play here. They're selling a lot of puts, so it's definitely setting up for that. I don't have the contract to point to you to right now, but I sort of know what it's going to be, and it's going to be that 620 July.
Do you So I watched Spy. Unfortunately, it's a horrible program. On Friday at the close, because I was like, this can't close at 600. Like, that's gotta be a problem for somebody, and that shit's rigged. Mm-hmm. It's rigged because it should have closed. Like, it did close at above 600, and then by the time the final tick comes in, we're just below it by some change. Could you see that movement from that, or like whose ass was saved on that? Because someone's ass was saved on that. 600 not being the close this week.
Yeah, I mean it was the zero DTEs. I think the 599 and 600 Cs and all that.
Okay. I see. Those are negative 2 days, so those are the contracts that were volatile.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, you had on 600C, you had 717,000 volume. So yeah, the people who sold those would have been fucked if it closed at like 601 or 602 or something. I mean,
because they would have had to give up the share that you got exercised on, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So that would have been bad. So that's the explanation.
Yeah, because I watched it happen
The
in real
stuff on the
time. It's
right
like
column.
these son of a bitches. There's no way this should have closed.
Yeah, the stuff on the right, like the 620 600C that's got some time on it. I mean, that was like 30 or $50 difference for the close we
Sure,
had.
sure.
But it's binary. Like for the 0 DTE, it's win or it's lose. You close below 600, all those people lose. You close above it, you know, the people who sold it have to do something. Um, so yeah, that's what that
Interesting.
explanation was.
So where do
And I mean, this is everybody. I'll switch to boring in a second, but if you just look at the volume on the left side versus the right side, volume of 2,000 versus volume of 700,000, I can see why people read the 0 DTE stuff. But the actual story of the market's on the right side,
Sure.
and that's where I'm at. But yeah, I can see why people ignore it.
So what do you got going forward here this week? What do you got for this
On
week?
SPY?
Yeah, well, just in general, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, because I think we're dabbling in
Yeah,
600s, which is going to make your side real active. It's only, I mean,
yes.
we still got 10 more hours for another phone call or something like that to get in the way of it. But for me, like, it's just this grind up that we've been having. I mean, if you look at pull up the TA side real quick. If you look at those weeklies, we got our 3 candles, and now we're breaking out of that zone. We're above the 50. I mean, everything on the TA side is bullish. With the caveat that we probably have a pretty thick ceiling when we get to all-time high.
To me, it's grind up, best moves overnight. That's where we're at, and I think that the only setup I would like for a trade on SPY personally is if it's down pre-market to get that recovery. That's a lot easier than because if it pops 0.5% or thereabouts, and I'm more focused on QQQ for this. But let's say NASDAQ goes up 0.8% or 1%. Your upside for the rest of that day is like 0.25% typically. That's not real easy to trade, and then you get your pullback of a 0.5%. Hard to time all that, but the end result of it is that we grind up. That the 3-2 market, it's the three are up, and it might even be 4-1 market for a while. But I agree that it's bullish and it grinds up. So you look for the individual names that
it's
can
fireworks
do well in that.
Then we're fireworks because
Yeah.
you're gonna find those ones that nobody knows about that are oversold that just are gonna grind for 3 or 4 days or that say some keyword in the news like profitability and gonna go back to wherever the volume was before. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I like that, and I'm fine with that because I mean that's when we get that's when for me where we get cleaner reads. The moves aren't because you don't get anyone messing with those small caps. You get a whale in control of it, and the move is pretty clean for me, at least on the share side. Red Robin's a great example of that.
So like with the tariff story, the market just kind of doesn't believe Trump anymore, and so why would they? And so I think that like you're not going to get like he's going to threaten some massive tariff on a country. The market's going to have a kind of muted reaction to that. And however, you start hitting trade deals, the market will pop to the upside on something concrete. So that's kind of where we are. I mean, I think bears have been counting on the chaos of these Trump deals and that knocking us down and staying down, and that's just not happening anymore. So very hard to do that. It's sort of like the way the market shrugs off a lot of macro data that seems bad. If it reacts to it, it's over in a day or less. And so, yeah, kind of tough to be a macro bear right now to me.
Yeah, I mean, we had the sell-off for the tariffs. That was overweight a little bit, and you're basically not the same way as like I always talk about the infrastructure bill. The rubber needs to hit the road. Well, I mean, even in the worst case scenario, companies are saying publicly that the tariffs ain't gonna mess with us if they do get implemented until Q4 or Q1 next year. So it's just yeah, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, and boy who cried wolf put together currently. So no, I'm with your assessment on that, um, and until they actually
On
come
it
to
a little too.
fruition.
The civil unrest trade is fairly non-existent in the United States.
Sure.
That you will have like National Guards called out to address some protest, and there's plenty to argue about on the merits of or health of the nation or democracy or all that kind of stuff. Um, Wall Street has tended to not care that much about that. The whole Occupy Wall Street, BLM protests, like all of that stuff has a very limited uh, correspondence to moves in the market, and I don't try to trade news like that.
Sure.
I'm flow first. Flow often aligns with news, but I'll just because I know that idea is out there, but I
Nah.
just don't. I don't see that as relevant to our work, and it's not because I don't care about that issue, but that's a separate basket
Oh,
than what's
sure.
going on with the market.
Hey,
I
I'll
don't
tell.
see the market really.
The only way I'm looking at that, or would look at that, is I'll one line for you. But the end of the Civil War will be bullish. I mean,
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
I mean, it
right.
doesn't.
And if anything, the stuff that's going to react to that is you know drones, detention centers, defense. Like I mean that stuff goes off on its own. And I mean I was joking with Carlos, like had a guy in the cigar bar who overheard me on Palantir way back and bought a bunch of it, and then he sends me this thing this week. Oh, is that what they do? Kind of all oh, that's horrible that they monitor Americans and all this stuff.
God.
And I mean, the guy works for Lockheed Martin.
Oh,
So I
jeez.
was just like, like pump the brakes, dude, on
Yeah.
being all alarmist liberty man on this thing. But anyway, I mean that's a lot of these companies do things I might not be all on board with, but
I hate headline readers though, because like Alex came out and cleared that shit up real quick. Like
yeah, sure,
he
um,
did, but just the
right,
headline of it, you know, yeah, that's a different
yeah,
conversation. Um,
right.
and plus, that guy's probably got
But
shares. He's
it's the
he's
worst.
doing he's doing just fine.
Yeah, he bought shares at about $16.
Yeah, he's
So
doing
yeah,
all right. Boring. I'm getting some boring stuff here.
yeah, yeah, yep. Um, Start with oil. So I starting to like oil a lot, and really, it's not about the move on this chart, more so the stability on the chart. If taps below 60 to 65, 72, probably the top. If that's our range for now, oil's going to grind up and do very well. Because even if it parks here, stuff like Oxy, Devon, Exxon are going to go 15 to 30% depending on which one it is. Like Dino will go higher,
Mhm.
Oxy
Just wrote that one down.
middle, Exxon lower. But yeah, I mean, I'm really like this setup a lot. So I think
So
it's energy is set up well.
so it's good for oil to be stable in the price. Write that down.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
let me write that down. I hadn't heard that
I think.
before. um, I'm throwing a little more gas in the wind lately. You said Dino. I'm with you on that. BP was the other one. Both those charts. Um, Oxy, no brainer. But both those charts were kind of like. I'll wait till I hear something from P this week. Besides putting them in the mixer. But yeah, I'm with you. There's some of them small oils are set up just for kind of, I wouldn't call it mid candle recovery, but basically on a larger time frame, that's what it is. And just the fear moving out of the sector a little bit.
market maker neutral or market monk neutral numbers way the hell above where they are now. So
Yes.
just kind of return to neutral, return to normal is the trade, and then can do better from there too. All right, so that's that, and copper. A little pullback on Friday. Who cares? Very strong here. It's gonna have to test 5 several more times, but the 5 to 7 move is what when we build America again, or whatever they want to call it. The big infrastructure focus paired with copper demand in China, paired with where the South American charts are, all of that sets up really nicely. So your SCCOs of the world are really set up well. Aluminum as well. Aluminum probably has more range, so just keep that in mind. And time to revisit some smalls there, I think.
Yeah, I got one. I threw one in the last 5 because I do like the sector. And it's any advancements, you need it. I know what I mean. Like if you're trying to be more energy efficient, newer products, they just need it. So yeah, I'm with it. It's kind of like just a little bit above aluminum in basic needs of general things. So um, again, I got one in last 5. I'm sure you know which one it is because I only have the one that I like. But I see that movement as well as kind of being an earlier one in that metal market. Everyone's just trying to chase steel, so I'll chase copper.
And steel remains a news play right now.
Yeah.
So that can do well. You just cycle from one to the next.
Exactly.
Go from there. All right, silver, $36. Who the hell could have ever seen that coming?
Never knew about
that we
silver.
would go to $36.
We should find some silver charts.
Right. We've got our confirmation of the move. Yeah.
Yeah. So now.
So yeah, it's obviously can consolidate from here. I still think the breakout to 42, 45 is going to happen, over time. But yeah, if you're parked in some silver, you're in good shape, I would say.
Man, I kind of felt like the old guy beating the table with that AG there for most of this year, but son of a bitch, just stick to the good ones. That's like the first when we first met. You had the big oil thesis, and man, did that go crazy that first year. This is the first one. This silver is the first one. I kind of felt like I was early, I was active the whole time, and it paid off in the end. In a boring, anything that comes out of the ground or that I got from you, so to speak. So very happy with the silver one. Gold, I was kind of late. I didn't believe you in December. I did in January, but I didn't, December. So, but silver was the whole time. So, yeah, good stuff. More to come there. We know the charts. Got the levels. Take your percent. Have a good day.
Yeah, and I think I'll just get into the if you like silver and want to catch some of this move, obviously trading the stocks certainly, but buying physical silver is still fairly easy. I mean, gold's a little trickier, but I mean you can get silver at like a garage sale. Like, so if you're really into silver, there's lots of ways to do that, and you can kind of catch the move with your little physical hoard too. And I not for everybody, but I do that a little bit, and have been this whole time. So yeah, feeling good about that too. Gold, yeah, I mean this 3,400 area, the breakout that could happen from there, pretty significant. I think if you're in some gold setups that are up, have your plan for how you want to do that. There still are some lagging miners here and there, so the flow is going to be very very readable there. But we're sort of in we're in chapter 2 of that read. Chapter 1 was that conversation back in December, the breakout to this spot. The longer you stay up here, the better, as far as how that can go. And I would say too, I mean, gold clearly is not it's not an inverse SPY hedge or something. It's, as SPY has recovered, it's stayed up here. So there's more going on than just that, than just the flight to safety aspect of it. But that is part of it.
No, we were early. That's how I feel about gold.
Yep.
Were we 4.5 here? Are we 4.5 again? Yeah, we're 4.5 again.
And that's I mean, that was obviously a big move on Friday, but it's still just kind of in this little range here.
Yeah, I agree.
So you don't want the big breakout or breakdown for this. So just keep an eye on it in that regard. But if it's gonna, pop 2.5% after bleeding out 2.5%, like it bleeds out for over 3 days, and then it pops back up to where it was 3 days ago, that's not a big deal. Not hugely disruptive. If this breaks up to 4.8 and they start talking about possibility of going to 5, that'd be more worrisome, and you want to just really be careful at that point. But other than that, it's not a big deal.
They're out there talking that well, not everybody, but there's a lot of days. Jamie Dimon, I think, is one of them. That it's inevitable that we're gonna have a problem at some point in time in the bond market.
Yeah.
After 08, we're really good at containing fires, and I think you're currently seeing it. I mean, there's a big problem in commercial real estate currently, and it's just not really affecting it. Housing, not as much, but very similar. But we're just good at containing fires. So, I mean, I think it currently probably is on fire a little bit with our debt and the bond market, but we're good at containing fires. So until it happens, I'm not gonna like hedge for it, because if you're active, you'll see it coming a mile away. I mean, it's not gonna. We're not gonna have a black. Information travels too fast nowadays for us to have like a real Black Monday event. We've been through some pretty big sell-offs before, and yeah, they're not horrible. They're not like the skies outside of COVID. If you guys were around for that, there's really hasn't been like it's 2 days down, and then we find some stability, and maybe it's 10 or 15%, and the market is pretty resilient in getting that zone or range back. So yeah.
And what Dimon said was that it's gonna break, and we're gonna do well when it happens. And you read between the lines. That means that they get an opportunity to roll that collar that people talk about sometimes. That they'll get an opportunity to roll that to a really good spot, and just make a killing
and ride it out
on that. And then at the time, they'll target the individual names, and we'll catch the flow on that too, and ride along for a few of those. So it'll be an opportunity. Those big, I remember like one of the best coin trades I ever had. Coin dropped like 20% overnight, and closed the day down 9%.
9, yeah.
And I was in those shares.
How'd you make money when it was down? That's my favorite question.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Because it was down more.
Yeah. right. So I love days like that.
Not wrong.
They're rare.
Not wrong.
Yeah.
You got another one?
So, Bitcoin.
All right.
I want to talk Bitcoin for a second.
This is what we needed, P. This boring little consolidation. I just thought we were, $5-10 lower, but
yeah,
good setting up, nice.
Yeah, sure is. So I think I got a higher number than you on where it could spike to. Are you in like the 120s or something?
Yeah, I just think 120. Yeah, I think right there you get some sellers.
Yeah, I'm probably wick to 132 or something, but it's you definitely want to get out. That move towards 120, you want to start peeling off if you're in anything. I think. It's not doubling from here anytime soon. That's what I would say.
Yeah,
If you want Bitcoin to double, it's going to need to be like 65, 70,000, not doubling from 106.
I thought I had over the last run. I think it was when it was this time when it reclaimed 100K. I don't really take the gas fees into equation on the price, and I mean that affects it a little bit, and at least in my opinion, because somebody
Yeah.
isn't going to buy or sell or whatnot. With I mean, it's really if you put the price up, it's 3,000 more, or 3,000 less, or whatever the case may be. So, um, however you look at
yeah,
that.
and so what you just hit is why there was no altcoin season, because Ethereum gas fees are really high, and you know what isn't really high is Solana has very small
Yeah,
fees,
yeah.
which is why, and then all the meme coin ecosystem is Solana. So like that was why there was so much liquidity and movement in those, and then the altcoins are still stalled, because if some dumbass wants to make money on some crypto, altcoin, and you buy $50 worth and $12 of that is gas fees, are you going to do that? Or are you going to just go to the one where the gas fee is like 30 cents, and then so then they just pump and dump in that space. But yeah, I mean that's why the Ethereum chart stalled so much this round. I think was the gas fees.
Well, one last little tidbit before we get to work here. We nailed crypto, so I'm not super into it because I love the setup that we just had. But man, this Mara chart, these lines are a thing of beauty. We talked about trading 11 to like 15 or whatever, and man, you got the total move on it, that chart, and it's just a good example of waiting until things are set up to trade them. Um, yeah, yeah, I like staying on it and focused, but we had the good trade out of Bitcoin. But
I mean, like for now, like for me, it's mainly been MSTR and this pivot, which you can see 4-hour chart's a pretty good illustration of it. But these these moves under 370, it keeps putting up a fight there. There hasn't been that flow to take it down, and it's in this big zone, so keeping 400 relevant is still around, but the big breakout above hasn't really shown up either. So that's why it's just quick hitters on that one. But reliable. It's been a good pivot.
Sure. Awesome. You ready to get to work, B?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Like and subscribe, people. Link somewhere.